Hi, Kaycee. How are you?
Doing great, Wayne. How's it going?
It's always great to see you. Always great to chat with you.
Likewise.
We have a short little conversation today. First question I want to ask is, what do you see? Because you're what I would call in the cognoscenti, right? You're in the know. What do you see as the biggest trend in data analytics right now?
Yeah, there's a couple of trends that we're seeing, and they're actually all related. That's the good news, right? So, one is I do think people are starting to really evaluate their data stack. I think we're seeing a lot more conversations, a lot more folks saying the piecemeal approach that they put together has become a lot more complex and expensive than they were anticipating and involves a lot more specialists that they have to hire and manage, right? So I think one is there is a
You mean
conscious
the modern?
awareness.
So you mean the modern data stack that was so popular last year,
Yeah, yeah,
where
it's
you pick and
great.
choose like from 12 different products?
Then more than 12. If it was only 12, it probably might be easier. But yes, absolutely, right?
Yeah.
I think that type of architecture has led to more complex integrations and more complex management and more complex output, quite frankly, where people are not only seeing it in delay in time to value, but it's also showing up in their monthly bill as well in terms of just inefficiencies around data consumption and data movement. And so, not surprisingly, kind of, correlating with the macroeconomic climate that enterprises are facing, where people are under budget scrutiny, I think companies are starting to evaluate and ask themselves, you know, does it really make sense, right? If we keep doing this and we're spending money on so many different fronts. So, that is definitely an area, a conversation that we're seeing to happen more and more. I don't know if people are saying they want one monolithic solution, like yet. I think people are recognizing what they have isn't working. But what's interesting is if you look at some of the big players in the market, Microsoft, Snowflake, Databricks, they're starting to build and offer their entire end-to-end solution, right? So I don't know if the customers are saying that's what they want yet, but the big vendors are starting to offer do everything on me. I will offer everything, and then you can have the complete stack on me. So if you read those two as data points, I think there is probably a desire for simplification, right? Now, whether or not the customers get a chance to choose in terms of do they have to go all in with one vendor, or is there a way they can still get a unified experience without having to move everything into one vendor? That remains to be seen.
Right. So the pendulum is swinging back from best of breed to all-in-one platforms for the reasons that you mentioned. We see this happen, every 10, 15
We've seen it
years.
a few times, Wayne.
And I
Yes.
would agree. It's definitely happening.
If you boil it down to like a very basic reason, because what customers tell us over and over again is just being able to have a single unified consistent view and a single way to access and query and all their data easily and securely, that hasn't been solved. And that's a big challenge that prevents any type of data consumption, regardless of analytics, machine learning, etc. So that's where I think it correlates back to this pain point people are saying of like, maybe that's why I'm having such a hard time because I have so many different products and components. But ultimately, the business, they want to have an easy way and a consistent way to find access and leverage the data that they want. And that's not being solved and being served right
Right.
now.
Next question. What are the biggest pain points you see your customers struggling with?
Yeah, I think the biggest pain points that we see them struggling right now is that, because of the inability to have a single unified view and a single way to access data regardless of where it is, it still requires multiple point solutions, multiple teams, which eventually causes delays. And the delays means that you're not able to build the data products that you want to consume the data products you want in time. So we are seeing customers using the term data products, trying to create projects that allow people to have more data products. But until that gets solved, what we're still finding is those projects have a long way to go before that they can actually be consumed. Everyone agrees they want data products. Everyone agrees it's a good thing to be able to give each user, each business unit their own way of creating their own data products for agility, for innovation. But this problem of not having a single unified view and single access to all the data you have, that's what makes it super, super challenging.
Right. Last question, Kaycee. You have a pretty cool product from my
Thank you.
perspective. It's the ultimate self-service tool.
Thank you.
What would you say are the key differentiators of your product?
It's a good question. I think there's a couple of key differentiators. One is, we do deliver that single unified view and single access for data seamlessly without forcing you to dump everything into our solution first. So that means it's non-disruptive, right? That means it's very easy to get in. And two is that serves as a foundation for you to then very easily build the data products, and we give you the tools to build the data products. As opposed to, well, here's a platform, you go figure it out, which is kind of like a lot of the tools in the modern data stack, right? Well, here's a catalog, go figure it out. Here's the ETL tool, ELT tool, go figure it out. Here's a prep tool, go figure out what happened before. I think what we've done is given customers a very good no code, low code, as well as code solution that allows them the framework and the actual interface and the actual workflow to then say, well, now I have the data. Now I know what I have and I can access it. I don't have to leave this tool. I can just build my data products, right? So I think one is having that framework and having the workflow and the capabilities there. And then two is, I call it kind of, relationship, right? Is, knowing how those products work together, right? Because when people talk about data products, most people think it's one thing. Well, it's actually not, because depending on your persona, a data product means something differently to you, right? A data engineer's data product might be a data set. A data analyst's data product might be the query. A business analyst might be, the dashboards. They all talk about data products, but they all mean very different things. But they're actually all tied together, right? You can't have the best dashboards if you don't have the queries built, and you're not going to build the queries if you don't have the data sets. If you don't know where the data is and how to pipeline it, you're not going to create the data sets. So what we believe is when Prometheum gives you a data product, we actually show you how all those things are derived from each other, related to each other. And this actually makes for a better shopping or consumption experience, because you now have visibility and trust into how the data set's actually, is being consumed by the different queries, how the queries are being consumed by the different dashboards, and then vice versa from the other way. Where do the tables come from? Where do the data sets come from? How is the query written to power the dashboards? And how are people reacting to them? How many views are they getting? How many votes are they getting? How popular are they? How frequently are they being used? That gives you a 360-degree view of your data product. And depending on your persona, you can set it so people have access to certain of them. So I think that's a big differentiator that makes data products actually safely and successfully consumable.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, I see your tool as the perfect mechanism to inject agility into kind of a more of a centralized or monolithic environment, because it can see all the data, gives people access to all the data, and allows them to do all the steps needed to prepare and deliver it to the user in the target format that they need to consume it. So, the perfect all-in-one self-service platform.
But I would like to just add to that, you don't have to start with everything, right? Because I think for a lot of organizations, that might be a little too much. Even if it's there, it might be too much. And so we always recommend start with just the fabric, start with just the data fabric, which is, how do I get that single unified view and that ability to now directly query, access my data that I have? If you start there, that's a good foundation to build. And you can then opt in and say, well, maybe I need some help building this data product. Maybe I need some help doing this. But we found that customers have a much successful implementation and consumption if they take it that way, right? And so I always say, like, just because all the capabilities are there, it doesn't mean you have to do everything day one, and nor should you, because change management is often one of the hardest things in any enterprise, and we recognize that. So I think that it is key where the fabric itself is going to give you a lot of visibility into, oh my gosh, I didn't know I have that. Oh my gosh, I didn't know those were related. Oh my gosh, I didn't know I can access that. And once you have that, it actually gives you better ideas into the data products that you would then want to build, and then how you want them to actually be consumed. So that's sort of the progression that I would say that could lead to a successful adoption is fix the first problem first, right? Which is, what do I have, where it is, and how do I get access to it? That's the most important thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Start with the fabric, give people the eyes to see what's out there and discover it.
Hmm.
And then, oh, now what's that? Well, maybe we want to consume it.
Exactly.
Let's query it. Let's consume it. Let's prepare it. Let's
Let's
mold
build.
it
Let's
and
let's
turn it
build these
into a
products.
dashboard.
Let's try that experiment. Try this one, right? And you can do it all right there. But yeah, let's not force people to
Yeah.
do everything, because that'll be very difficult day one.
Well, Kaycee, thanks for coming. Thanks for the insights and have a great day.
All right, Wayne. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.